Do you hear, Sean, by the way, that my voice changes when I intro? Hello and good morning. This is the Bankster DFS NFL Sunday Blitz Week 17. Myself, Doug Shane at Bankster 17. And who's this? It's the dirty slot himself. Big number 55, Sean Goodwin joining us, fresh off a monster hockey weekend. Gutta got married over the weekend, and I've been informed that he is in no shape football-wise. I'm sure he's feeling great. Football-wise, he's in no shape to perform this morning. So Sean's going to be joining me. We are banksterdfs.com, $3.99 a week. And you join everything that we do. You get all of our articles, all of our player pools, and of course, the best Slack chat in the business. That's where everything really is. The hottest is in the Slack chat. We post all of our articles, pools, late breaking updates. We talk. It is by far, banksterdfs.com is by far the best fantasy sports community for the casual player. And at only $4 a week, you can't really beat the price. Cover all the sports, major sports, college sports, niche sports. Our pro stuff's amazing. Our college stuff is amazing. And, with the college football season winding down, don't worry. Brandon and Troy have you going for college basketball. Golf is coming back, I think, this week. And Brian and Chris Ardrey are going to have things going for that. Later in the year, I'm sure Sean will join up. But right now, he is our hockey maven, the smartest hockey guy that I know. Sean. Fresh off our $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 plus win between Sean and Paul. I had a little modest takedown in hockey last night, and back-to-back nights with GPP takedowns, only $50. But I was playing a small tournament, got in real late, but hockey pops is not so bad. NBA's been popping, MMA been. Will we have baseball this year? I don't know. Of course, our NFL fantastic. We have MMA. We have soccer, the best soccer writer in the world, Jeff Kaminsky. I mean, the FSWA says so. He's an award winner for that. All for $4 a week. You get all of it. Banksterdfs.com. Folks, thanks for joining us as well. I see people are filtering into the room. Please make sure that you drop your question in the chat box so we can make sure that what we're saying is relevant. But before I go any further, I'm going to go to my phone and start updating the fact that we're online and sending out messages. I'm going to let Sean ramble. Good morning, Sean. Second big hockey win last night. Why don't you, brag for a little bit. Be happy. Be excited. How are we this morning? You must be happy this morning.
Yeah, we're feeling good. I'm happy to be on here for the newlywed, covering for him as he sets off in his life of wedded bliss. I'm kind of like the Steve Buscemi from Wedding Singer here, coming on to sing at Adam Sandler's wedding here as he's getting married.
So sing a little ditty for us.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I guess last night I would have hit for 2.5 years worth of Bankster subscriptions. I think is how that works, or something if we do the math off the top of my head. But yeah, it was a good night. It was we're smoking in NHL, and hopefully we can roll into some big hits today for NFL, and we'll get everybody situated and sit back on the couch and enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is an interesting week, of course, for football. Usually I just retweet Sean's tweet of the fact that we're live, but now that he's with me, he did not tweet that because I made him talk. Okay, we're good. Everything's updated now. I'm getting messages from Gutta wishing us well on our show. Again, folks, make sure you join us in the chat box. Talk to us. Say hello to us. Let us know you're here. Let us know what your pressing questions are. Real interesting week 14. I'm not expecting anything too crazy. Prior to lock, though, at 11:30, we will go with the inactives. We are keep an eye on the Tampa Bay situation with Mike Evans. He's expected to play, but limited. Antonio Brown's expected to play. I have my concerns there. We'll talk about the Antonio Brown situation in a few minutes. I'm not really expecting any other major inactives. So we're going to talk about cash lineups. We're going to talk about GPP lineups. We're going to talk about it all. But first and foremost, let's talk real quick about Prize Picks DFS. They are a partner of ours. We love them. It's basically player props. You do a player prop parlay across all sports and win money. Right now, you will get a 100% first-time deposit bonus up to $100 when you use the promo code Bankster. And as we have been with just about everything, we're pretty hot with Prize Picks right now. I popped a five-player parlay last night in NHL. That's 10x my money, which is fantastic. They're in a promo over the weekend on New Year's Day, or is it New Year's Eve? Might have been New Year's Eve. It might have been New Year's Eve, where they did, because yesterday was New Year's Day, they gave you not only 10x if you hit 5 for 5, but they actually gave you an extra 12x on your money. So it would have been 22x. And I hit 4 out of 5. And on the fifth guy, I bet the under on some NBA player to score 30 fantasy points. And he scored 30.4. So by half a point, I missed out. So, I still double my money, though. You don't have to hit everything on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you hit 3 out of 5. You're getting $2 back on a $5 bet. And double your money on 4 out of 5. So there's a lot of ways to win here. Let's go through a quick one here. They like to say, or the experts out there like to say, the sharpest plays are betting unders because people love to bet overs. So let's bet a couple of unders here. Let's look at Trevor Lawrence going up against the Patriots. Lawrence is garbage, and the Patriots defense is really good. So we're going to pick Trevor Lawrence. We're going to go under 185.5 passing yards. I'm also going to go under on Tua against the Titans. Everyone wants to talk about how great the Titans pass defense is. But if you look over the last 6 weeks, the Titans have actually only given up 3 top 24 wide receiver performances. And obviously that correlates with the quarterbacks. And quite honestly, Tua hasn't hit this 236 yard mark once over the last 6 weeks. So the under feels pretty sharp here. I'm going to go over here too. We're going to add some touchdowns because touchdowns are fun. So that David Montgomery scores a touchdown today. Great matchup against the Giants. We'll talk about Montgomery in a second. Earl Jones has got to score against us today, right? Like, the Jets are just terrible against the run historically. They're awful. What's that?
That might be the easiest one all day. The Jets.
Let's hope so. I got a lot of Ronald Jones today. And we'll do another one for Alvin Kamara. It's about time you start scoring. Taysom Hill's back in the action. Let's see. I've got 5 picks. I'll throw it in for, not $85. $8. If I hit it, I get 10 times my money. This is the flex play. 5x or 5 correct pays 10x. 4 correct pays 2x. 3x pays 0.x. So we're all good. I'll throw it in for $8. We'll put the entry in there, and let's hope that everything hits the way I need it to. Again, promo code Bankster, 100% deposit bonus up to $100. All right, let's talk about cash games this week. All right, first and foremost, Sean, and folks, please don't forget to throw questions into the chat box if you are interested in hearing, getting your questions answered and fixing your lineups and figuring out what you need to do. So I hate big slates. 14-game slates are awful. There's just so much that can go right or wrong, and some random-ass player like Rex Burkhead last week is just going to go off and do something, and like 3% of the field's going to have them, and you're going to have needed them, and there's too much going on. So I'm actually playing a little weird this week. I'm playing cash, but I'm actually playing cash on 3 different slates. I'm playing the main slate for a third of my cash budget this week. I'm playing the early slate for a third of my cash budget, and I'm playing the late slate, which is a 5-game slate, for a third of my budget. So now I've got that 14-game action because you want to play. That's where the money really is. But you've got the 9-game slate and the 5-game slate, which are far more manageable. And so I'm playing cash in all those. This conversation that we're going to have is going to focus on the main slate. But I may throw some ideas out, and we can talk about some players that we like for some of those smaller slates that maybe they don't make my main slate cash lineup. Like, I don't know, say Jarrett Patterson, right? You see him right there. I wrote in my article this week, I don't think he's a cash play. I don't think he's a must play. But if you're playing the early only slate, I do think there's an argument that could be made for Patterson if you want to be able to spend up for both Taylor and Kupp. You need to find a place to save some money, and maybe you can afford a Montgomery or a Ronald Jones. So you pivot over to Patterson. Same thing with the later slate where maybe where maybe Rashad Penny becomes more of a cash game play, where I'm not necessarily playing him on my main slate, but he's one of the better running back options on the later. So definitely something we can think about as we move forward with our cash game conversation. As usual, Shani, I'm going to do what I do every single week over the last few weeks, and I'm going to start guessing what the chalk lineup is going to look like. Please remember, folks, this is not what my cash lineup looks like. I will display my cash lineup, at least where it stands for now. It's been sort of going back and forth all week. This is where I will show later where my cash lineup stands, but this is where I think the chalk is going to be. And we're going to discuss which chalk I like, which chalk I don't like, where I'm going to be. And Sean is going to throw his opinions in. I'm going to start calling you Big Money Sean. I like that. Big Money Sean will throw in his opinion. So, Shawnee, any chance that Trey Lance is not the cash game lock at quarterback for the public today? Or do you see anyone who has a chance of coming in as a cash quarterback other than Trey Lance this week?
No. Honestly, when I jumped in last night, I did some digging myself, and then I brought your cash article up, and we were lockstep. Not a big surprise there, but Trey Lance at $40.
Yeah,
like I mean honestly, if you're doing cash, like that's the beauty about cash. You only have to finish in the top 50%, right? We're not trying to win. We're not trying to finish first. We're trying to cash. So what's everybody going to do when they look at quarterback today and they see Trey Lance, good old Trey Lance, sitting down there at $4,800 hosting Houston. He can run. I mean, he's everything we want in a quarterback, right? You guys talk about it all the time. He can run, right? He can do it with his legs, right? Jalen Hurts. I mean, how many times has Jalen Hurts been at halftime and we're all like, oh my God, never again. And then you look at the final box score and he's at 25 points or something because he ran in a couple of garbage touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And I listen, he started one game this year. Right here, week 5 against Arizona. He scored just under 16 fantasy points, which is not a great number, but on 4,800, it's fine. But look at the key stat for me here. And a lot of people are going to go, oh, he rushed for 16 times. Yeah, we know Trey Lance is going to run, right? Like, we know he's going to be fine with the running. He did not score a touchdown and still scored 16 points as a quarterback. Like, against Houston, you would like to think a little bit further in his maturation process with the weapons that he has at his disposal. Even if he throws for only 25 to 30 attempts and only completes maybe half his passes, you've got to think he's going to get a touchdown throw in there, or he'll get a touchdown run, which then puts him up at or over 20 fantasy points. Maybe he doesn't run for 90 yards, but do you think Trey Lance is going to rush for less than 8 to 10 attempts and for less than 40 to 60 yards? I don't see him not doing that. So if you even take a look at 40 yards rushing, and what do we expect? Maybe 50% chance of a touchdown. So that's 3 points expected. 4 plus 3 is 7 right there. He's got a 7-point rushing floor. If he throws for 150 yards, that's what, 5 points? So now you're talking a 12-point floor without any touchdown, without any upside, without anything, with anything. I mean, 12 points is not great for 4,800, but if he 16, 18, 20 points, and he's got 30-point upside, if he pulls a Hurts, right? If he goes and does what Jalen Hurts has done in the past, let's pull up some Jalen Hurts stats to kind of see where Trey's upside is. And I don't know why. I mean, I probably shouldn't spend this much time talking about Trey Lance because you're just going to play him, right? Everyone's going to play him, but I really want people to feel comfortable, and it'll lead into the GP conversation we're going to have later.
One thing I did come across about Trey Lance is of those 16 runs that he had against Arizona, 12 of them were designed plays, designed runs for him.
Exactly.
So it wasn't scrambling. Designed runs. That's key.
Let's look at this game right here. Jalen Hurts against Tampa Bay. 12 of 26, one of the most inefficient quarterback games of the year. 115 passing yards, 26 fantasy points. Why? He rushed 2 in. He had 44 rushing yards. He threw a touchdown. Can we lock in Trey Lance for 2 rushing touchdowns? No, of course not. Is that in the realm of possibility? Is it within his range of outcomes? I think it is. Sure it is. And so you're basically getting Jalen Hurts for almost $2,000 less. Just freaking play Trey Lance. As of right now, the numbers are looking like Chase Edmonds is going to be fairly chalky at only $5,700. Coming monster week last week where he just got a ton of work in the absence of James Conner. James Conner is trending towards playing, then Chase Edmonds is not a great play, and it's a later game. Where are your points here off of off of Chase Edmonds? Where do you leave yourself pivot points in the later slate? Daryl Williams, not in the later slate. Sony Michel, not in the later slate. Jeff Wilson's not going to get there unless Eli Mitchell's out. Devin Singletary, not in the late slate. Donta Foreman, not in the late slate. Where's our pivot point? What are we going to do? Are we going to sit there with Chase Edmonds, with James Conner plays, or are we going to pivot to who? Who do you pivot to? There's literally nobody in this slate. I'm trying to pull up these players here. Like, You got to spend 300 extra for Mitchell, so maybe you leave yourself 300 extra bucks just in case. But like, isn't Eli Mitchell like? Are we really stacking Mitchell and Trey Lance? Maybe you pivot down to Rex Burkhead, but then you have $700 extra for what? The Denver running backs are too expensive. They're both over 6K. So again, you've got to save some extra money. And then which Denver running back? Which Denver running back are we going to use? Oh, you can't get up to Penny or DeAndre Swift. Again, you need extra money to make that happen. You need at least $300 to $400 to make that happen. You can't get up to Kamara. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do if James Conner plays?
You have to.
That's why I'm not using Chase Edmonds. Sorry.
You have to flex. I think if you're going here, I think you have to flex Edmonds. I think you have to flex him. So then if Conner does start, you have options, right?
Again, true. But maybe people keep Edmonds. So let's look at where the flex could be. You need an extra $100 to get to Christian Kirk. And I'm just going to scroll. DJ Moore, that's a tough matchup against New Orleans. Again, where are we flexing to? Even then, AJ Green, that's not a cash player. You know what I mean? Like, so you're going to go with a far inferior player unless you leave yourself some money. And I don't like to have those iffy situations. Don't get me wrong. I have Chase Edmonds currently in my afternoon only cash lineup because I think I have him there. I may even pull off of him for that reason as well and play around with that lineup a little bit because he still should get enough carries. And in the afternoon only slate, you are kind of limited by the number of running backs that are available. But even then, I'm not 100% sure that's the smartest play. But in the full slate, I just don't understand. And now, if Conner's out, Chase Edmonds is a fine play for cash. It makes a lot of sense. But if Conner's playing, that's a risky play. And with the later slate, that's a problem. It's
a question you definitely don't want to have to be dealing with when you're for your cash, right? But I mean, Arizona is going to be behind in this game, I'm pretty sure. And Chase Edmonds is the pass catching back. Like, I mean, there's worse things you could do. I mean, if James Conner is a go, I think game script will save you on that probably more. You know, like you said, putting him in a flex and you're going to flip to an iffier situation, or right, like Edmonds will catch passes even if Conner is playing.
Absolutely.
Edmonton.
I just say you don't put Edmonds in there and just avoid the situation. You know, I'm watching season 4 of Cobra Kai. No spoilers, please. But they quote a line from Old School Karate Kid. And one of the things that Daniel talks about is the best way to win a fight is to just the best Chase Edmonds situation, I think, is to just not put him in your lineup, and then you don't have to deal with it. Because there are far better options. I don't even know better, but there are other options that are available, and I think they're better, right? And you know, for me, Ronald Jones, DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, they're all in better situations. So I mean, Swift will play, but we don't know how much work he's going to get. But Ronald Jones against the Jets, even with Ronald Jones only getting about 55% of the snaps last week against Carolina, he still had a really nice game. And people will, oh, he was saved by the touchdown. Well, no, he had the touchdown. He wasn't saved. Like, you put Ronald Jones in there with the expectation that he was going to get a touchdown, hopefully, right? Like, yes, we want a guy who's going to have some volume. And yes, he only had 10 points on volume. But you do kind of have that expectation when you put a rookie in that there, you know, that's the lead back. There's some touchdown expectation. Maybe you don't factor in the full 6 points, but like we did with Lance and say there's a 50% chance he scores. Well, I would say the same thing with Ronald Jones. I would go ahead and guess, and I didn't pull up the number, but if you pull up your betting sites, I bet you Ronald Jones is not plus money to score a touchdown. I bet you he's like minus 150, minus 180. Like, that means there's a better than 50% chance he's going to score a touchdown. So we can factor in 3 to 4 points. So he didn't get saved. And I think he's obviously we betted on picks. I think he's going to score this week too. Ronald Jones is in a much better spot. Put him in your cash lineup instead of Chase Edmonds, right? I think Daryl Williams. Daryl Williams is I was asking Slack yesterday if he's a must play. No, absolutely not with Edwards-Helaire out. Is he an option? Well, yeah, the guy gets 3 targets a week, even when Edwards-Helaire plays. But he's got upside for 4, 5, 6 targets. He's going to get 10 to 12 rushes in a game where there should be some scoring back and forth. At $5,800, he's the same price essentially as Edmonds, and he has kind of the same role, but without the extra guy in there. Is Derek Gore really going to scare you? Is Jerick McKinnon really going to scare you off of Daryl Williams? He's not for me. Even Sony Michel's in as good a spot. Cam Akers doesn't look like he's going to suit up. Darren Anderson is out. Michel's going to get 95 to 100% of the snaps. Might we see a Jake Funk sighting? Perhaps, but he's not stealing carries. I mean, look what Michel does. 24, 20, 18, 27. He wavers between 2 and 4 targets, but he's going to get you that point production. I think he's far safer than Chase Edmonds. Devin Singletary, $300 cheaper than Edmonds. Singletary's been getting all the work for Buffalo. Zach Moss will probably be active, and he does steal a little bit of goal line work, but still 15, 10, 22, 12. That Tampa Bay game was weird. But he had 7 targets in that game, 6 targets. He fluctuates a little bit in targets, but he's been over 14 points each of the last 3 weeks. Has a little bit of touchdown upside. Singletary's look great. I don't know why you put yourself in the Chase Edmonds situation. He's in my pool, but he's not a target. David Montgomery's a guy I've made a priority. He's not in my core. Ronald Jones is in my cash core, but I still made it a priority to get David Montgomery in the lineup. The guy's just been a volume monster. The targets are there, and they've been there since Cohen got hurt last year. He is just a target guy. It's very rare that you see him go on 5 targets. He's only been there in like 4 games this year. He's got tons of goal line equity. The Giants are terrible. Chicago is a home favorite. $6,500 is too cheap. I love David Montgomery. I'm locking him in. The big question this week, and I wrote it up as one of my burning questions. And Sean, I'd love to get your opinion this week. Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, neither or both. What do we do?
I think Jonathan Taylor. How can you not play Jonathan Taylor in every bloody format you can? I mean, the kid's just an absolute.
Like you have to pull a punt though. You're going to have to punt a couple of spots if you want Jonathan Taylor to line.
For sure, absolutely. What if? So the other, I don't know. I didn't see it mentioned or what. What if the Ravens do to Kupp what they did to Adams? What if they say, you know what, you're going to have to beat us with Beckham and Van Jefferson, and we're going to put 3 guys on Kupp. I'm going to have a linebacker and a safety following Kupp around the field all day long, like they did to Adams.
Kupp's a different beast, though. Kupp's a different beast than Devontae Adams, though, because his A-dot is much lower. Stafford will have no problem throwing bubble screens, dumping it to him 4.4 yards off the line of scrimmage. Like if you're playing like bump and run, right? If the corner is going to let him get to the linebacker and the safety, like if he's going to find a hole in there. It might not be a 150-yard game, but Kupp's still going to get his 10 to 12 targets. And if he catches 9, if he goes 9 for 90 with a touchdown, it's not a wonderful game. It's 24 points. But, I mean, to me, that's like a floor. Like, and his floor has just been filthy. We lost too many times last year fading Devontae Adams. I agree with the concern, but – and, again, not to say you have to play Kupp, but I think
but is it Taylor or Kupp? That's the hill, right?
Or both, or neither.
Geez, what does your lineup look if you play with both? If you use both,
let's pull that up right there. That's what my cash lineup looks like, and I got them both because there's value to be found. I've got all 3 running backs that I've prioritized with Montgomery. I kept playing with Devin Singletary, and I never got comfortable, so I prioritized. Morning, Brandon. We'll get to your question in a second, Brandon, but let's throw the good morning up there. Good morning, Brandon. Brandon Brandon does like everything: NBA, college basketball, tennis. Brandon's the man.
Trey Lance opens up so much, right?
He does, but you still have to find a couple of other punts. I like Zay Jones. The volume has been ridiculous for Zay Jones, right? Like, so I've had Zay Jones in my cash lineup regardless. I kind of went back and forth between Zay Jones and Braxton Barrios, but I just think that 7-5, 7-9, 8 from a better quarterback in a better spot. He hasn't done much with it, but really on the volume alone, he's kind of getting to that 12-point need. If he happens to score a touchdown, he's now a 4X guy. I think the upside is possibly there because Indianapolis is pretty good against the slot, and it's a tough matchup for Hunter Renfrow, which opens things up for Zay Jones quite a bit. Again, I played with Devin Singletary in my lineup, and I just was never. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to prioritize Lance easily, Montgomery, Jones, Kupp, Taylor, and the Dolphins defense, who I love. We'll talk about that maybe briefly if we have time. I like the Dolphins defense a lot this week. So then I was like, well, what else can I do? I really thought Zay Jones was an easy fit. $3,900 wasn't a problem. And I kept looking in that mid 4K range, and I was like, there's just no one I like. And then like every receiver that's ever played for the Broncos is on the COVID list this week. And they're playing with Kendall Hinton and Travis Fulgham and a whole bunch of garbage. And it's like, Cortland Sutton was a top 24 receiver coming into this year. And it hasn't really worked out for him, but Drew Lock favors him over Teddy Bridgewater. Drew Lock's got the bigger arm. Cortland Sutton's a better downfield threat. You think Denver's going to probably have to throw a little bit, though I do think the running backs are really big in this game. I don't know which one. Maybe just play both of them because LA's so bad against the run. But I don't see how Sutton doesn't get six to 10 targets. And in that volume, he makes some sense. And then I found this little gem at tight end this week. It's Steven Anderson for the Chargers on the other side of that game. I've always liked Steven Anderson. He's got this, when he's playing for the Texans, he's got this wide receiver body, and he's pretty good downfield. I used to watch him play at Cal, and he was really good. And I understand Trey McKitty is on the team, and he's been catching some passes, but Steven Anderson is a much better downfield threat, and the target volume's not there. But Jared Cook's on the COVID list. Donald Parham suffered that injury a few weeks ago and is clearly not ready to come back. I do think Steven Anderson makes a little bit of sense here for the Chargers, and as a complete punt and cash games, that's where I'm going, and that's how I was able to fit both guys. What did I have to do to make that work? Well, I couldn't use Jalen Waddle, but we did give that stat about Tennessee earlier in the game. Our guy Paul loves Steven Anderson. Paul, our 20K, our 10, 20, 50 million K hockey guy. But anyway, I was talking about Waddle against the Titans. Everyone seems to like Waddle, and I like Waddle as well. But the Titans have actually locked down receivers the last month or so. So we had to give up on him. And the real thing we had to give up on was either Foster Moreau, but I wasn't stacking Zay Jones and Foster Moreau, and Gerald Everett at tight end. I really love Everett today. Detroit is awful against tight ends. They've given up 7 top 12 tight end performances in the last 6 weeks, which means like 1 week, 2 tight ends were top 12 against them. And Everett's been a double-digit fantasy scorer for the last 6 weeks. It's a ton of volume. I love him in tournaments. I'm running mini stacks a lot with DeAndre Swift, but I just couldn't get to him in cash because I prioritized Kupp, Taylor, Lance, Montgomery, Ronald Jones. Like, this lineup speaks to me. I'm probably going to end up putting this into a lot more cash than I want to because this lineup speaks to me. What are your thoughts on this, Sean? Then we'll answer a question that Brandon put in the chat a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, getting Taylor and Kupp in the same lineup, I think, is huge. And like you said, the rest, I mean, some with Drew Lock, Cortland Sutton with Judy and Bridgewater was basically an afterthought. I don't think he eclipsed 30 yards, I think, in, was it 4 or 5 straight weeks there?
Terrible, yeah.
But when, right? So, I mean, you know, you're going to have to make your stand. You're going to have to, right? I mean, let's face it. Kupp, Taylor, Montgomery, and Jones could get you there on their own in cash, right? Jones,
I agree with that.
The lock. I think Jones is an absolute lock for a touchdown, maybe 2. The Jets have given up 26 rushing touchdowns on the year. Like, the Jets, ridiculous, horrendous. And you know, Brady's not sneaking it. The Bucs are probably going to get out early, right? I mean, when we get to the GPP section, I mean, honestly, Keyshawn Vaughn is probably in play at some level, at some form or another today.
Just wait to see what I'm doing with Tampa Bay. I can't wait to talk about Tampa Bay. I got to see the inactives, but I cannot wait to talk about Tampa Bay. I do love Ronald Jones. I do worry a little about Keyshawn Vaughn in that game a little bit. But to me, this screams last year when the 2 priorities in cash and the 2 we always asked every week, Derrick Henry or Devontae Adams, neither or both. And a lot of times it was just stuff them both in and figure out the rest. And I was like, you know what? That's Kupp and Taylor this year, and they're both in monster matchups. So let's get them both the frick in our lineups and just deal with it. Quick answer to a question, because inactives are going to come out where we ignore everyone and just talk about inactives. Brandon wants to know Taylor with either Zay Jones, Renfro, or Moreau. Renfro's out in cash. I'm using Zay. I love Foster Moreau as well. In tournaments, I am going Taylor with Moreau because I prefer to run my mini stacks if I can with the tight end if they're not part of my main stack. If I've already got a tight end in my main stack, I'm running Taylor, Zay Jones for sure. I love that. To me, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. So
Yep.
I do think that I'm definitely running Taylor back. I'm getting him in tournaments. I don't think he's going to be that widely rostered. I don't think anyone's going to be mega chalk, though there's one player we'll talk about in a minute, but I do want to pull up inactives first, and then we'll talk about then we'll have a conversation. We'll finish up our cash conversation, and we'll kind of talk about tournaments as we go. So let's quickly look and see. Sorry, I just saw something on Twitter that made me very happy, but I'm not going to bring it up here in public, but I was very happy. Let's see, inactives. Inactive. Emmanuel Sanders is inactive. Probably helps Gabriel Davis. Julio Jones inactive. We knew that was going to happen. We're going to talk about Buffalo in a little bit too. I think they could be a real sneaky GPP stack. People just aren't using them, which is crazy. Raiders, no one of note is inactive. Oh, Tampa, this is a big one. All the receivers are active. Okay, well, you've got Evans is active, though he's kind of on a snap count. Antonio Brown is active. I've got my concerns about Brown. We'll talk about him in a minute. Justin Fields inactive as expected. Miles Sanders inactive as expected. Jordan Howard is active. Which kind of kills all Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell. I'm staying away from that entire running game for Philadelphia. I just think that's a freaking mess. Lamar Jackson, inactive. Fire up Huntley. I kind of like Huntley as a cash play if you're not using Trey Lance. Huntley is my cash quarterback in the early only slate. Lance for the late slate, but I'm going with Huntley for the early slate. He does a lot of the same stuff. No surprise inactives for the Dolphins. Jamison Crowder out for the Jets. LaMichael Pirine out for the Jets. I mean, Michael Carter and Braxton Barrios both very much in play. More so Barrios. Really love.
I love Barrios today.
I have way too much Barrios today. Like way too much Barrios.
Very dirty.
But I'm doing a lot of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh golly, I'm so excited. Let's see. Oshak Hennessy inactive, as is Dan Arnold, whatever that's worth. Antonio Brown being active bothers me, but well, no big deal. Oh crap, that is not good. Okay. For the Patriots, Nelson Aguilar inactive and N'Keal Harry's inactive, which kind of kills me because I have N'Keal Harry in quite a few tournaments. He's been getting a lot of targets lately. So him being inactive kind of sucks, and I have to make some lineup changes. We were going to talk about N'Keal Harry. We are no longer talking about N'Keal Harry. But what this also J.J. Taylor is out. What this does tell me, with Harris and Stevenson both active and Bolden, they're going to run the ball a lot today. Hunter Henry maybe is a guy to keep an eye on, but with the Patriots, it's the running game, but I don't love Damian Harris enough. Shout out to Gutta, who loves Damian Harris every week. I just think with Stevenson active, neither guy really speaks to me in a GPP, though I'm definitely not cash. I do have some Harris Patriot stacks, but I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that's going to be an issue. Let's see. Any other inactives that make sense talking about? I'm not really seeing much else. All right, let's see. Washington, Curtis Samuel inactive. Doesn't really matter. You weren't using Curtis Samuel. No one for the Bengals that matters. The Colts, Marlon Mack is inactive. Since Marlon Mack's been inactive, that's just been great for Jonathan Taylor. Michael Strachan, the receiver, is out, which all that just tells me is Ashton Dulin still has a role for Indianapolis. If you're playing the showdown, Dulin's a good cheap option in the showdown slate for Indy. Obviously I'm not using Ashton Dulin. I'm really upset about this N'Keal Harry thing. Like, I'm really upset about N'Keal Harry. He was a guy I was super in on today, and I have a lot of fixing to do. I have way too much N'Keal Harry. For the Giants, every receiver in the world is out except for Pharaoh Cooper and Kenny Golladay are both active. I kind of like Cooper in the showdown. Not playing him in the big slate. Cam Akers inactive, so it's all Sony Michel today. You don't have to get cute. Hollywood Brown is active for the Ravens, which there was some question that he was going to be out with a non-COVID illness, which I thought was going to turn into a COVID illness, but it's not, thankfully. But that kind of takes Rashad Bateman out of the discussion for me in cash. I have him in the cash pool. He's going to get removed from the cash pool. Pretty much, I think we've covered just about every team. I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but I'm waiting to see if there's anyone on Kansas City that matters. Though you would think by now we would have seen it. So, okay, doesn't matter. So Brandon wants to know Gronk against the Jets. All right, let's talk Tampa Bay real quick because it goes back into my cash line. We'll go on to this one, actually. We'll talk. Antonio Brown is trending towards being the most widely rostered receiver in fantasy today, and I don't get it. I don't. I love Antonio Brown. Loved him last week. Total smash spot when Chris Godwin is out. Like, actually, when Antonio Brown plays, he freaking loves him, which is great. Except Brown has been a little hobbled anyway. The Jets should be a walkover, and the Jets are the type of team that you run against with Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn, and like they're available, right? Why would they run Antonio Brown out? Might he have a couple of good series? Yeah. Might he have a big game? Possibly, but 40% cash. I am 100% fading Antonio today. Like, I'm in a weird place with Antonio Brown. So what am I doing here with the Buccaneers? Okay, let's clear this cash lineup. As you saw my cash lineup, I'm not using Antonio Brown. He's going to be wildly popular. He's one of those chalk pieces like Najee Harris from two weeks ago that I'm just not eating. So let's talk about where Tampa Bay is interesting. And I do think that Tampa Bay is a real interesting team. First of all, Ronald Jones would be fairly chalky, and I'm using a lot of Ronald Jones, Braxton Barrios mini stacks. I love it. Sean, I know you're a big slot guy, and you said that you had something for the slate today. Was Braxton Barrios the thing you wanted to bring up that you mentioned to me privately before last night, or was it not a Braxton Barrios tidbit? Because I want to give you an opportunity to get involved here.
Oh, I love Braxton Barrios. Love Braxton Barrios today. Love him big time. He's got a great matchup in the slot. Dirty slot, big, no surprise there that I come with a little slot action there at the end of the year, but I
super cheap too.
Crowder being out was what I was waiting for. So him being out is good. Is Elijah Moore in?
Yep.
He's on COVID. He's out, right?
COVID.
Yeah, he's already out. Yep. Yeah. So yeah.
It's Barrios and nobody, and Keelan Cole. Like, those are your receivers.
It's Barry. Yeah, and the Jets are not running on Tampa Bay at all, right? They're gonna have to throw. Barrios, yep. I don't know, Barrios 10 plus targets.
I would like to think. Plus, he has that punt return potential. He did run one back. He did run a kickoff last week, kickoff and punt return. He did run one back last week, so it's there if possible. So let's talk about
$3,700. We might get 10 targets.
Just too cheap. Very big cash option. Okay, and Matt I love Matt. He always leads me into the conversations. Yeah, it's got to be one or the other. And I've been not stacking. People did it last week, and it worked. But Brown was the play last week. This week, I think it's Rojo's the play because the matchup is there. I'm not playing Brown. I can't do both. And again, if you want Taylor and Kupp, you can't get Brown in your lineup anyway.
I don't like that. And Brown tweaked his ankle. For receiver, tweak. When I hear tweaked
exactly.
Ankle, and like you said, like Tampa Bay should be cruising by half. Why would you run Brown out there at all? Right?
Now, I do think there's a creative way we can go with this. I don't love Gronk this week, but I do respect the fact that he's he's got the upside. He didn't do much last week. Really, he's been kind of a target guy. Carolina's pretty good against tight ends. He's been getting monster targets, huge touchdown equity. So if you want to fade the Antonio Brown chalk, but you still want to play the Tampa passing game, I don't think you can play Mike Evans. Listen, Evans could go 2 catches, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns. We saw it against New Orleans last year. He's done it. I'm just not playing Evans at 7K, and I told you I'm fading Brown. People are going to want to go to Rashad Perryman, who took off the COVID list. He didn't play last week, okay? I don't want to go Rashad Perryman here. We've seen some guys come off the COVID list have some issues with their wind. So what I am going to do, and he is active, I'm taking a look here at Cyrill Grayson, which is a weird guy to throw in there, but Cyrill Grayson actually ran saw as many snaps as Antonio Brown last week. Now I understand Mike Evans was out, Rashad Perriman was out, Scotty Miller is on the shit list for the team, but he ran over Tyler Johnson, which was really interesting. And he performed 3 for 81 and a touchdown. Okay, so the guy did something. He is a deep 50-yard touch this year and a 62-yard catch. Out of his 4 catches, 2 of them went for 50 yards or more this year. If the Buccaneers get a comfortable lead, they're up 17-0, 21-0 early. Antonio Brown tweaks his ankle. They don't need Mike Evans, whatever it is. I do think there's an avenue for Cyrill Grayson to get a little bit of a look. They might want to see what they have in this kid anyway. Again, he's running above Miller. Darden is on the COVID list. Watson is out. Goodwin is out. Evans is injured. Brown is injured. Perryman could be winded. I'm running this stack today, not heavily, but a little bit, because I think weird works. So I'm running Brady, who loves to kill the Jets, as does Gronk, with Grayson and Barrios at receiver. This is if you want to fade the Brown and Rojo chalk. Sean, tell me how drunk I am.
Honestly, you know what? I mean, it's the NFL, right? Weird stuff happens and whatever. Tampa Bay is going to be a big time by half. Brady might not, but in that half, and even if Tampa Bay is a big, Grayson's still going to be on the field, right?
Yep.
And I love. They got to see what they have. Godwin's gone, right? Evans and Brown, they know what they have in Evans and Brown. They know what they have in Gronk. They know, right? Rojo's there, right? They know Keyshawn, Grayson, right? Yeah. I don't know what happened to Scotty Miller. I don't understand what's going on there with him. I would have loved to roll him out today, but nothing's going on there. So who else you got?
I'm just following the snap counts on this one. I'm literally going, this kid's getting some snaps, and there was extenuating circumstances last week, but this game gets out of hand quick. Tampa Bay shouldn't have to go crazy. Now, I'm not using this a lot. I'm using this here and there. And what I'm running mostly in this game is I'm using this game more as my secondary stack because it's cheap. It's 10 grand. I'm running Rojo Barrios. Now, let's not get to this game is not in Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady does not play as well outside of Tampa. He does okay in domes on the road, but this is in Jersey. The weather's not great up here in the Northeast. It's rainy. It's a little snowy. It's windy. It's gross. Rojo. And the reason I'll still use Barrios, even though we can't really trust Zach Wilson's arm, he's going to kind of like the conversation we had about Kupp. He's going to get short, easily convertible passes. They're going to throw it 5 yards down the field to the guy. They might give it on some end arounds and some sweeps. Barrios is a guy that, just to his price, he's the only guy in the offense that matters. This is a fun little mini stack that's not going to cost that you can then run with a bigger stack. Well, what kind of a bigger stack can we look at here? Well, I'm glad you asked, Sean. I do feel like the Buffalo Bills are getting overlooked a lot. Stefon Diggs is currently slated to be under 5% this week against the Falcons because Singletary is slated to be one of the most rostered running backs this week at 25%, which is, listen, he's been fine, but if you can tell me I can get this stack here with Allen and Diggs, and I can run it with Dawson Knox, and then I can run it back. A unique kind of a build with Kyle Pitts, because people Bills are good against tight ends, but Kyle Pitts is a receiver. He lines up as a receiver a lot. And Kyle Pitts is going to break the record for most catches and most yards in the history of the NFL for a tight end. He is having an historic season. So what's not going well with Kyle Pitts? Touchdowns, touchdown regression. He has no touchdowns. He has one on the whole season. Well, you don't play fantasy guys because of the touchdowns they're going to score. You look at the volume they're going to get. And Kyle Pitts has had two games all year where he's had less than 6 targets. In a matchup where Atlanta's going to have to throw. Yes, we have the same issues that Buffalo could have some weather today and blah, blah, blah. But someone's going to have to catch the passes in a game where they're going to have to throw. And it's a unique with the double tight end. I mean, if you're going to get this stack for low, and then you just, you run a cheapy defense in there, and have some money left to play around a little bit. Let's pull. I do love these Dolphins. They've been scoring off charts lately. The Dolphins. And you find some cheapo stack to run at the, towards the end of the day, because I do want some late game action. Or you run this as an early only. Let's run this as an early. You don't have to worry too much. You go in there, you throw some Jones in there at $3,900 because we do like Zay Jones. I very much strongly, by the way, promote and support running early only and late only lineups today. Like in those particular, like don't just run an early only stack in the full slate. Just play the 9-game slate. If you're going to do that, it's a lot easier to go there. And you run this as an early only. I think this is going to come in pretty low owned. We got $6,000. Can't play. You can't play Swift because he's late game in the early only, or Mitchell. Now, if you're playing the full slate, Swift makes some sense. You could run Barkley. No one's going to be on Barkley, but you can run Daryl Williams right there. I mean, you've got so many options here, and there you've got yourself a lovely lineup, early only, with a low-owned Buffalo Bills stack against the Falcons. Kind of did that. I'm not going to enter it because I've already entered my Buffalo Bills stack. But what are you thinking, Sean? Like, you forget the Buffalo Bills thing. I was just rambling for a second. You said you had some stuff for today, and I have not called for it yet. It's Sean time. What do you got, Sean?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously dirty slot centric kind of thing, right? Like it's that's what we do. That's it'll be coming back full steam next year for sure. Now that the NHL heat map has freed up a lot of our time.
So much time.
Podcast for another day. But
did you know they can get access to our NHL heat map as part of our Bankster DFS membership? It's only $4 a week, and they get access to everything, including our NHL heat map, all of our other sports, our Slack chat, our website, everything. $3.99 a week. BanksterDFS.com/subscribe. Anyway, Sean, so tell me more about the dirty slots for today.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barrios was the big one for me. Barrios is cheap. That's Barrios will probably be. I'll probably 100% Barrios in everything today. Love Jalen Waddle. The Titans have actually given up the 4th most fantasy points per game to the slot. So love me some Waddle, Jalen Waddle. Hopefully he does a couple of the old Penguins in the end zone today for us.
Oh, I love Waddle. But I am concerned because over the last 6 weeks, Tennessee has only given up 3 top 24 wide performances. That scares me a little bit, but that volume for Waddle is too good to ignore. It's too good to ignore.
Yeah, like you said, we gotta follow the snaps. Touchdowns. You don't count on touchdowns. Touchdowns are a happy bonus. Touchdowns are a nice one, right? When they find the end zone, happy day, right? But if you're a guy who's going to be 10 plus targets, whatever, you got to go volume. You got to find it. And I mean, yeah, Tennessee's locked down the receivers, but in the slot is where I think you can get after them. So I'm expecting a lot from Waddle today. Barrios, like I said, Barrios for sure. Now, I mean, we're sort of talking early only slate.
But we can talk about anything. We don't have to do early only. Like whatever you find it, I'm fine with that.
Well, the other one that sort of intrigued me, I'm just bringing it up here, was what's his name? LeJordan Humphrey.
Lil Jordan
Humphrey.
Jordan Humphrey. I love Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Right?
Now, so he's questionable. It's a late game, so we won't
Harris back? Harris is back.
Yep. He's a downfield guy, though. Humphrey's a big play guy. He's different than Harris.
Well, he does his damage out of the slot, right? Like with Ian Book, who should never see the field ever again. True. That guy caught me a shot at the finals because he couldn't score a single. Never mind. I'm not going to get into that now because I'm a little bitter about it. But he had 5 targets, 3 catches, and 70 yards.
Yep.
With now 56 came on one play, but that's great. He's a home run threat, and for
But
30.
with Harris out, would you pivot to Harris instead if Harris is going to end up taking those slot? Because Traquan Smith is out. If Lil Jordan moves to the outside and is running as the third guy, would you pivot over to Deontay Harris at only $3K? That's a really good price on Deontay Harris, by the way. I found my N'Keal Harry replacement.
Yeah, like Deontay Harris, if LeJordan is going to bump back out to the outside, then Deontay Harris would be the pivot for sure. Love the slot matchup against Carolina, absolutely.
Let me ask you a question about a different.
Who's starting today? Is it Taysom?
Taysom.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about a different slot guy. What do you think about Tavon Austin this week? Looks like James Robinson got when he went out. They started to use Tavon Austin a little bit like Deebo Samuel, which is like, why hasn't the team been using Laviska Shenault like this all freaking year? But they not. But maybe they look like they're going to start using Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin and Laquan Treadwell, by the way. That's how bad the Jaguars are, that they are resurrecting Tavon Austin and Laquan Treadwell. But, like, he's been getting targets anyway. But last week, once James Robinson went out, I get that Ogunbowale did fine. But, like, Tavon Austin was a guy who was getting some run. Is he someone we can look at $3,400 this week, even against the Patriots?
Jacksonville, man.
I considered him for cash. I think I have him in my early only cash lineup.
You know what? I mean, the price is right. The price is right, Bob.
The price is wrong.
I
do have him in my early only cash lineup. Tavon Austin. God, I hate myself. I must hate myself so much.
For $3,400, I mean, you can't really. It's just, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Jacksonville. I mean, they clearly are in full tank mode. If you watched the end of that game last week,
yep,
they threw that. I don't care what anybody tells you. They threw that. Like, they purposely pissed that they didn't want to win that game. That series screamed everything to me about let's tank without tanking. Let's try not to make it obvious.
Yep.
But I mean, they spiked it on third down on the goal. Like, I mean, it was. I don't know. It's just Jacksonville. The stink of Jacksonville is just, it's
pretty gross.
Yeah, even with Meyer gone, it's just lingering. It's just like it lingers. It's just like, I mean, yeah, for $3,400, I guess it's worth it. I don't know. It's Jacksonville, man. I don't know. It's gross. It's gross.
No, I feel you. Matt wants to know how I feel about Gabe Davis. He would be my third option. I like him better than Beasley. I do like Gabe Davis a little bit more. I'm running Knox Diggs for my Bill stacks, but I think Gabe Davis makes some sense. Do you ever read it all on Gabe Davis?
Yeah, no, I'm sort of with you. I'm on Underdog. I grabbed some Allen Diggs stacks on the weekly battle royale, and I'll probably roll that in DK. I don't know, the Beasley, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie. I don't know, I'm probably going to just avoid that whole scenario personally.
Yeah, it's tough because
all three of them could go off. Like, literally, like either one. Like, I mean, Isaiah McKenzie not so much now because Davis and Beasley are going to play, so he's not really in the mix. But you go play Gabe Davis, and then Beasley's going to catch 12 passes. You're going to go Beasley.
Yeah, it's a tough situation there. I think the safest way is just to go Diggs, Knox, because Knox has been getting his pretty much regardless. Also wants to know, in cash, Dolphins or Colts? It's Dolphins for me. Though I understand the Colts. Like, Derek Carr has had 2 turnovers in each of the last 3 games, both a pick and a fumble lost in each of the last 3 games. And the Colts defense has been playing really, really well. Okay, so let this up. I wanted to look defense for a minute because, the defense whisperer loves to have his defense voice heard. And I wrote them both up. Did I write the Dolphins? Like, the Colts have had 10 or more fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games, and they've just been over 10 a lot. Like, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the last 6. They've had a few 10-point games, 3 more. They're not going to get negatives. They force a ton of turnovers, 31 turnovers. No team is better than fumbles. Love the Colts. Have no problem with the Colts defense. But in cash, I'm running the Dolphins. I may regret it, but there's something about this Raiders offense that has a little bit of upside, whereas I'm not in love with the Titans offense, even though the Titans are at home, because the Dolphins have been playing just as well as the Colts. And look at they've scored 9 more fantasy points in 4 straight games with multiple 20-point games. They've also had an 18-point game and a 17-point game, and they're getting in the backfield a lot more than Indianapolis is. I get Colts are forcing more turnovers, and we love turnovers, but turnovers come from pressure, and the Dolphins are putting a lot more pressure on the quarterback than the Colts are. Colts are putting plenty, but they're not getting there. And we can't count last week's 8 sacks, Ian Book, but 6 sacks against the Jets. I get it. It was Zach Wilson. 3 sacks against the Giants. I get it. It was, whichever garbage quarterback was playing for the Giants. 5 sacks against Carolina. But at some point, despite the fact that they're playing crappy teams, at some point we just understand that the Dolphins know how to get into the backfield, because not everybody is getting into the backfield for that many sacks against those teams. And it's not like Ryan Tannehill is an amazing quarterback. He's fine, but he thrives when the running game is working, and it's not working without Derrick Henry. He's not a huge turnover guy, but he did that 4 turnover game against Houston. He does fumble occasionally. I just like the aggressiveness of the Dolphins defense, and I think the sacks are going to keep us a little more viable. Dolphins, you can go either way, I suppose. I'm not opposed either. I like them both quite a bit. I think they're both in that price range, ridiculous values. And if you can spend up from Detroit or Washington, who are fine at the lower end, I suppose, if you can spend up to either Indianapolis or Miami, I think you're going to be really happy with the results. I also think, by the way, since we're talking defense, one of my favorite stacks this week is running the Saints defense against Sam Darnold and Alvin Kamara. Mark Ingram, like he's going to play this week. Taysom's back at quarterback. I know Taysom will take some of the work away from Kamara, but he's also learned how to dump the ball off, and Kamara's been okay. And he hasn't really had a monster game yet recently, and he's kind of due. And Carolina's been terrible. Saints are at home. Kamara's going to come in under 10%, and maybe even lower. He's under 8K. A really good pivot off of Taylor and Eckler. No one's really spending up at running back this week. I love a Kamara and Saints mini stack, and you don't have to run it back because obviously the Saints defense is saying we don't believe in a run back here. So I love that for a mini stack for GPPs. I've got a lot of Kamara, and I've got a lot of it on FanDuel. It's really cheap to run on FanDuel.
No, it's cheap on FanDuel? No way.
Everything's cheap on FanDuel. You can do whatever you want on FanDuel. FanDuel, I had no problem putting together a cup. I do not have early only and late only cash lineup for FanDuel. I tend to play less there, but it was so easy to put together a lineup that I liked that had, my FanDuel cash lineup, I think, I got to see what I got on there. It's such a ridiculous lineup.
Taylor and Jones?
I've got Taylor, Jones, Kupp. I was able to get to Everett. It's basically the same as my it's actually almost identical to my DraftKings one, except at tight end, I'm not using Steven Anderson. I was able to get up to Gerald Everett, who I like more. So to me, that was it made a lot of sense to do that. And
good old FanDuel.
FanDuel's great. Just do whatever you want on FanDuel. I'm excited to make lineups today because I just think there's so much fun. I'm not going to overinvest this week because 14 game slates are rough and the early late onlys it's only so much you can do on them. But it's an interesting week, and there's no real super leverage this week because there's no overly chalky things to do. Because even with Tampa, the overly chalky play is ground, but Rojo's kind of chalky too, and Singletary's kind of chalky. So I guess the Bills' passing game is kind of leverage, but this is leverage. This is not a game anyone's talking about right now. Is Kansas City, Cincinnati? Hey, you can run Holmes out there as a low owned play. You can run out, you could probably run out we'll have some weight behind them. I love San Francisco as a stack. I do think Trey Lance can support both Kittle and Debo. So I'm running a Lance, Kittle, Debo stack. No one's talking about the Chargers passing game. Bryce Callahan is out for Denver. That opens things up for Keenan Allen. And you could run a Keenan Allen, Steven Anderson stack with Herbert and run it back with either Cortland Sutton or both running backs. You can get really interesting with that. That's great for a late play.
So you remember what I told you about? You remember what I told you about the Chargers this week, right? So I lost my semifinal matchup season long because Herbert shit the bed. And
so they're definitely going to go off this week just to screw you.
I'm expecting 450 and 4 touchdowns for Herbert and $150 and 2 touchdowns going to Allen.
Yeah. Love it. I think Seattle makes a lot of sense, but one of the things we've always talked about Seattle is it's very rare that both Metcalf and Lockett go off on the same week. So what I've done is I made 2 Seattle stacks. I did one with Wilson, Lockett, Everett, and the other with Wilson, Metcalf, Everett. So, of course, this will be the week that they both go off. I'm running it back with DeAndre Swift. I think Swift's going to take some of Amon-Ra St. Brown's targets. So Amon-Ra's fine. And you know, the little game that could right here, Dallas, Arizona. We haven't talked about this game at all. It's hidden very, very back of DraftKings. If you're going to stack Dallas, and you should, I love Dallas. It was the first stack I made this week. I got some DAC action. I'm running either. I'm not running both. I'm doing this very similarly to how I'm using Seattle. I'm going to pick one of the receivers, probably Cooper right now. And Dalton Schultz is like the key for me here. He's been phenomenal. Dak loves him. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'm running it back with Christian Kirk. Dallas is great, but and you know, everyone's talking about Trayvon Diggs with his high interception total. That's because he's a very aggressive defender, and I brought this up a few weeks ago. He's like Marcus Peters was a lot of years back for both Kansas City and Baltimore. He gets a lot of picks because he's hyper aggressive, but if he misses, receivers just wide open for touchdowns, and he gets burned a lot too. So you take the deep threat, Christian Kirk, you run it out there. I think this stack makes a lot of sense. You can throw CeeDee Lamb instead in there, and that also makes a lot of sense. Kind of digging this.
CeeDee Lamb has a matchup this week.
What's that?
CeeDee Lamb has a very nice matchup this week.
My problem with CeeDee Lamb is he's had a case of the dropsies this year, quite a bit. He's dropped open scores, and his target volume, he hasn't done much shit with him. He's had like 4 good games all year, and I am, but I know. I hate Cooper too. Like, it's weird. I stand Amari Cooper. I love CeeDee Lamb, but I feel like Cooper's the play this week. But I get the matchup is great for Lamb, but that's why I'm just running them both out there. I'm running 2 lineups. Like, you just do that. You know, if you're playing, you're playing. So, you know, when in doubt, make more lineups. That's the Bankster mantra. That's been since day freaking 1. It's when in doubt, make more lineups. And so that's what we're gonna do. What's that?
That's on the banner. Just make more lineups.
It should be our motto.
Yep.
Instead of a home for whatever our thing is, the home for the casual DFS player, it should be make more lineups, spend more money, do it. All right, Shawnee, we have hit our 12 o'clock. We're running past the 12 o'clock time limit. Any last and final thoughts that are sticking with you that we, what is it we need to leave this week knowing to get ourselves ready for a huge green screen?
Be ready. It's the same thing for hockey. I did it last night. If playing the full day slate, be ready to pivot, right? If chalk hits early and you're behind or whatever, pivot. Make sure you can pivot, right? If you're running one line but you're entering 10 contests, hedge on 3 or 4 of them, right? Don't be afraid to get off. Like if you're trailing and you have the Dallas or somebody like that running late, pivot to a lower owned stack. Don't be afraid to do it. A lot of people don't take advantage of that, and I think you're leaving money on the table. I mean, if you're already out of the cash and you're trailing, make the pivot, get off the chart, get off the popular plays, and like you said, running. I love running the Allen. I love the Allen Diggs Knox stack to go against Singletary, right? I love that.
Yep,
think like that.
That leverage. Listen to this man, folks. He's in the last 6 weeks, he's won $25,000 on 2 big wins in hockey and then multiple other wins. Did you have like a $500 win the other night too? Like, Sean knows what he's talking about, guys. He should definitely. He's fantastic.
If Hurdle doesn't score in overtime on Friday night, that's an I hit for 1K on the late slate.
Not that dude knows what he's talking. Like, just because he's a hockey guy, he's a DFS guy. He understands how things work. Like, listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about. Folks, don't forget you can join us and be part of that $1,000 club, right? We've been so many $1,000 winners over the last 2 months. It's over 10 at this point, and we're just big wins, tournament takedowns, banksterdfs.com, $3.09 a week. And it's not just in hockey. We've got members who've hit for well over $1,000 in football over the long. We have one member, and I don't know if he wants us to share that publicly, so I won't say who it is. But he's hit for over $1,000 in each of the last 2 weeks. We've got writers, members, and all the sports hitting big time and everything. $3.99 a week, get you access to all of it, including our Slack chat, which is really where that's where our community lies. It is a fantasy sports community for the casual player. We're not charging you $100 a month or $50 a week or whatever it is that the other sites charge, and they're all wonderful sites. This is not to disparage them. They're fantastic. But we're here for the casual player. We're here for the guy who wants to play $10 a night or $5 a night. Or we have players who just play the quarter arcades and, cash $3 on a quarter arcade. You're 12x in your money there. That's what we focus on. And, obviously the big players are here, right? Paul is a monster. He's qualified for the NHL Live Finals. And we've got guys who've won $10,000, $20,000. You're looking at one of them right there. And so we cater to everyone. But if you want to be part of a fantasy sports community and you are a casual player, we are the place to be for under $4 a week. And we cover it all. We get you sports betting. We talk WWE. Sean loves to show us Traeger in one of our rooms. Our Slack chat's amazing. Come check us out. $3.09 a week. Banksterdfs.com. For Sean Goodwin at big number 55, I am Doug Shane at Bankster17. Come check us out. Banksterdfs.com. Have a great weekend. Best of luck. Can't wait to see those green screens. See you later.